Two new commanders have been leaked in Rise of Kingdoms. In this video, we're going to go over both the leaks, the details about them specifically, and where I think they're going to fit in the meta based on what the current leaks are. But without further ado, let's get started. So first, I want to take a moment to say thank you to Olaf in 2057, who managed to track these down and forward them to me, as well as 1093, who found the original leaks. The first commander leak is Dido, who's going to be an archer, garrison, support, talent tree commander. So talent tree wise, she's going to be similar to Amani, and I imagine her build is going to be very similar in that way. We're going to quickly go over her skills though first. Her first skill is a 2000 damage factor single target that, if it hits a rallied army, will reduce the skill damage of up to 5 nearby enemy troops by 30%. So this is going to be essentially a deterrence of skill damage heavy swarm commanders, as well as being a potential means of dissuading the actual 1v1 commander, because it can also hit the rally. So this is going to overall help her resist swarm, and it's also going to help her 1v1 in both ways. Her second skill is a 20% increase in defense and a 5% increased damage to infantry. In addition, if it's only archers, she'll take 10% less normal attack damage. So this is similar to Yan's way of resisting swarm with the increased normal attack damage and the AoE debuff, although I wish there would be some more AoE damage on her primary skill. Overall, I think this is going to help deter swarm a little bit, especially if you're going to keep a pure archer garrison. Her third skill gives a 20% increase in attack, and when garrisoned, a 20% chance to afflict ambushed effect, which essentially prevents the target troop from benefiting from any effect triggered by being surrounded. It sounds to me like this is more the target rally being surrounded, like Pakal's skill, but it could also mean something like Dev's skill, where the target of the rally is being surrounded. But it seems more like it's Pakal's side, but either way, it's got a 3-second uptime out of 8 seconds cooldown, so it'll be okay, but either way, it's not going to be super groundbreaking, I don't think. Her fourth skill is a 20% health boost and a 15% skill damage taken reduction once every 10 seconds. So the 20% health is going to help both 1v1 and against swarm, and then the 15% damage reduction is going to help more effectively 1v1, because you're only going to have the one target dealing the skill damage, so you can consistently make sure that the rally is dealing 15% less damage, which is really, really significant. It's on par with some of the top garrison talents, so it's good, but against swarm, it's not going to do as much besides the health. Finally, her expertise gives an additional 20% attack on her third skill, and when her ambushed effect goes into effect, it also decreases the target's defense by 40%. That is huge. Even if the target doesn't have any benefits from being swarmed or surrounded, the 40% defense debuff is going to make anything that gets hit by it take a lot of damage from the garrison. Especially considering archers have some of the highest damage outputs, it's going to make it really hard for targets to sustain fight against this garrison. So overall, I think that her skills are going to be very solid, and she's going to fit in the garrison very well. And really what archers need is an anti-swarm garrison. So the fact that we're finally getting one is going to be very beneficial for archer garrisons, and pretty much it might make them a lot more relevant in the current fighting, especially with Tariq being out now. Having an archer garrison to counter him is going to be huge. Alongside Dido, we also got a new field or rally commander. I'm not going to try to pronounce the name because I don't want to butcher the language, but he's going to be an archer versatility skill commander. So already I'm liking the talent tree selection just from the get-go without even looking at the skills, because the archer and skill tree are just so great for archers that really you don't need a good yellow tree. So overall, that's already a good positive. His first skill is a AoE that hits up to 5 enemies with a 2000 damage factor skill. In addition, Any target hit does 15% less damage for the next 3 seconds. So if you're in the field and you hit 5 targets like you would with a Joan Prime skill, but larger, more targets, instead of giving rage and damage to allies, you're debuffing the enemy's damage by up to 15%. This is actually really significant, and it's going to be useful whether he's in the field or if he does happen to fit into the rally meta. His second skill is a 30% increased health and a 5% damage boost if you have archers. Whenever this commander's troop is hit with a control effect, so these are your silences, your slows, anything that essentially reduces your normal movement or normal abilities, you have a 50% chance to negate the effect and then counter damage up to 500 damage factor on the attacking troop. So that's going to be, even if it happens once every 5 seconds, it's going to take anybody with a support tree who has an AoE slow, and it's going to give you a chance to hit them back with a damage factor. And overall, it's going to really be useful, again, both in the rally and in the field. So it's going to be useful for both applications, and what makes it so hard to tell what he's going to be for sure. His third skill is a 20% skill damage boost when only using archers, and normal attacks have a 10% chance to boost your attack by 50% once every 5 seconds. This is kind of like a mini YSG fourth and expertise skill jammed into one. I think it's going to be useful. It's going to be really good. And overall, it's going to, again, make his damage really high, and it's going to just make a field or a rally damage be that much more deadly. His fourth skill is a passive skill that whenever he uses an active skill, he gets a marquee stack, which is a unique stack to him, increasing damage by up to 10% for 10 seconds. If the troop contains only archer units and it has a marquee effect, when it uses an active skill, it'll shoot out a fan AoE with a damage factor of up to 1500. And this will deal up to 3 targets, although it will not be affected by skill damage boosts. So it's got a really high base damage output, but it's not going to be boosted by skill damage boosting effects. But it doesn't really need that to be significant, because this is a passive that's going to be up every skill proc after the first one. And then when you look at his expertise, you'll realize it's going to be up all the time. So his expertise says whenever he enters battle, he gets a stack of marquee. So he gets 10% increased damage for 15 seconds. Each time that his active or passive skill deals damage, he gains 30 rage. So whenever he uses his active skill, he's going to use his passive skill. So you're going to gain 60 rage essentially. And you're also going to be having that 10% increased damage every single time you cast an active skill. And now that he enters battle, as long as you are consistently getting skills off, you're going to be running with a 10% damage boost that's going to, every skill is going to also throw out a 1500 damage factor, 3 target AoE. So he's going to put out an insane amount of damage. Of course, with archers, the only worry is swarmability, and that is my one concern with him, because he doesn't have anything to really deter swarming. So he will be high damage. As a rally, he might be really swarmable, but most archer rallies are. And as a field commander, he's also going to be very swarmable, but most archer field commanders are. So he's not really going to be any more swarmable than any other archer commander, but it is concerning to see that he doesn't have a lot to deter swarm besides just AoE damage and a little bit of damage debuff on his primary skill. He does have the windfall of having the skill tree, which means he's going to get more active skill uses. So that uptime of that 15% damage debuff is going to be more significant, and you're going to hit targets more often. But in a field, 5 out of a field presence of 50 plus, or 100 plus, or 150 plus, you're still going to have a target that's going to hit you unimpeded. So overall, it's great. He looks like he's going to put out a ton of damage, but I do have some concerns about swarmability. So where do I feel these commanders are going to fit? Well, I did talk a little bit about our archer field / rally commander, about where my concern is about his lack of anti-swarm ability. But overall, I think he's going to have a solid slot in the meta with that much damage factor and that many chances with the skill tree as well. He's going to be a nuisance for any player who is weak to archers, so any infantry player, anybody who otherwise just has trouble against archers, it's going to be even worse. It will probably bring up the significance of marches like Joan Prime. It will be interesting to see if we switch a little bit, where her viability was good because of her slow, but now that slow is able to be countered by that. But with it being archers, I don't know how much that skill damage factor is really going to hurt Joan as much as people would think it would. But overall, it's going to be interesting to see. I think he's going to have a very solid niche in the meta. I'm guessing he's going to be wheel, because typically the garrison commanders are mightiest governor commanders. So if he's wheel, he's going to be accessible to most players, and he's going to be probably a safe investment for a lot of players, just due to the sheer damage he puts out. For Dido, it's going to be interesting as well. I think she's going to have a definite niche, and I think she's going to do really well, both in a garrison, and both as a primary and as a secondary. We do already have a primary garrison commander that has her talent trees, so it's not like they're not the most viable thing in the world. It is interesting. I do think Amani will be the primary commander to pair with her, just due to the AoE helping a little bit with that lack of AoE on her skill side. And then kind of like Jadwiga and Jan are, where Jadwiga doesn't have any AoE anti-swarm, but Jan has all that in his kit, where you have Amani, who doesn't really have a lot in her kit passively, but has the AoE, and then you have Dido, who's now going to have all this AoE normal attack damage reduction, and then you have the 2 AoEs from Amani to help boost that. So overall, I think they're going to synchronize very well together. They do have very similar. They do have pretty much the exact same talent tree layout, and they'll probably have the exact same talent tree for primaries. But that'll be an interesting debate, is where she will fall, if she's going to be the primary or the secondary. I would lean primary, just because her ability to reduce the defense can then be followed up by Amani's attack. But I don't know how well that's going to make a difference overall. But either way, she's definitely going to be solid. She's definitely going to be something that's going to make the garrisons significant for archers again. Because right now, with the current swarm heavy meta, there's no chance for an archer garrison to really stand up to anything. Especially when you've got Nevskis running around dealing so much damage that even if they were viable against swarm, it's going to hurt. This is going to at least give them a fighting chance against those Nevskis and those Jones and those Zhang Yus, and really give them a chance to not be melted immediately. But with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up the discussion. It's very interesting. I think both are going to have a very strong impact on the meta, but they don't quite have as much of a, oh my gosh, they're going to completely break the meta like Jan and Joan Prime did when I saw their releases. So it'll be interesting to see for sure. I do think they're both going to have really solid slots in the meta. I'm just wondering how much it's going to really shake it up. But what do you think? Do you think these are going to completely break the meta? Do you think these are going to be more of the same? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to see any other topic covered, let me know down there too, because oftentimes comments and suggestions become future video topics. I've had several of them now. I also want to thank 2057's Olaf for finding these leaks, as well as the 1093 Discord that originally provided the leaks through. So, without further ado, good luck, fight well, and I will see you on the battlefield, maybe with these commanders.